What's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Hang. Dave Pollock, what's up, bro?
Ryan.
Good to see you.
Good to see you
We're
again,
live
as
from
always.
New York, dude.
We are live from New York. It's
Saturday night.
Oh, my gosh. And
Who is that over there?
Yeah, we're hanging with one of my favorite saxophone players, one of my biggest mentors in music and in life, I would say, in business and everything in between. Mr. Chad Lefkowitz Brown.
Thanks, man.
A sax phenom.
Thanks, dude.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
A sitting ovation is what we call it. Yeah, man. Let's talk a little bit about your career, I guess, right off the bat. And I guess I can start it off with a question. What made you want to go down this path of being a jazz saxophone player?
Yeah, totally. Well, it was a plan B. First, I wanted to be in the NHL.
Ooh.
What?
I was pretty focused on that goal until I was probably about 13.
Okay.
And what it was, I was very tall for my age. I was a big dude, and I was crushing it. Playing hockey, and then everybody else kind of caught up and hit puberty and started getting big, and all of a sudden I went from like scoring 9 goals a game to just being pretty good.
Yeah.
And slight exaggeration, it was 9 goals a game, but point being, for NHL you get drafted when you're like 16 or 17. So I was like, all right, I love saxophone. Maybe the NHL thing isn't realistic. So yeah, that's when I doubled down on that. Until then, it was always kind of just for fun, honestly. I grew up hearing Charlie Parker, Dexter Gordon, John Coltrane, all the greats around the house because my dad, who's a retired music teacher, was a big jazz fan and still is and plays a little bit of everything. But saxophone was always kind of his favorite. And so when I first started playing saxophone, I was kind of like whatever on it, as many 9-year-old kids are. And, I've told this story before, so some people might have seen this already, but pretty much, long story short, was that my dad sensed I wasn't super into it. And so he put a Charlie Parker solo in front of me. And I was 9 or maybe 10 at that point. And I went from playing Mary Had a Little Lamb and hating it and like getting my saxophone out like once every 3 weeks to having a lot of fun. And I just took the solo one measure at a time. And it's a lesson that I tell at every masterclass that I do, because I think that, like, not to go into like preachy music stuff here, but I think that the number one reason why people don't tend to improve when they get stuck is they're just not challenging themselves, and we all do it. We all, at every level of our development, I have to do it all the time. There are so many days when I just want to practice the stuff that I could use a little work on, but to keep on improving at the most rapid rate, we have to sit down or stand up and be like, all right, what have I not gotten into and what do I really need to work on? And like, I'm constantly, giving myself that reminder. And so many people, they'll just, for months, for weeks, for months, for years, they'll just practice the same thing. They'll do the same scale exercises and just figure, I'll get a little faster at that. Or they'll work on the same solo that they already learned and they'll just keep reading it. Or they won't learn the next chorus, or they won't learn another solo from that artist. They won't learn their second Charlie Parker solo or their second Lester Young solo or whatever it is. You need to be in this constant state of expansion, I think. And so, yeah, point being, when I was 10, I started learning Charlie Parker solo one measure at a time. And I was not like some crazy prodigy who, just had this, freakish talent that allowed me to do that. And I really think, and then I'll shut up. I really think that I've said this before a lot. I really think that talent doesn't exist. Talent is just a byproduct of hard work. It's a byproduct, a lot of times, of skills that we don't even realize that we have, whether it's that we were singing when we were like 2 years old or 3 years old or 4 years old with our mom, or whether we're, listening to recordings and humming along, or whether we're, clunking away the piano and starting to get things in our ears, or whether we're practicing things in our instrument in ways that actually make us better for our musicianship and our ears and stuff like that. There are approaches that make you better at things that people associate with talent. And the response to that, people always say, oh, well, talent is just like in the hang of something faster. It's like, well, how do you do that? Like, how did that come? There are things that I do now that when I was 15, 16, 17, 23, I struggled with so much. Mm-hmm. So it's like talent is just a byproduct of patient, disciplined work, or for some people, things that they develop at through, more natural means. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that it's just magic. It means that they just enjoy doing something that made them better at something. Yeah. Whether they realize it or not. Last story, I promise, and then I'll let you guys talk.
No, we love it.
I'm getting excited here.
They don't want to hear us talk.
No. When I was in college, it was the first time I started working on solo transcription in all 12 keys. And I remember mentioning that I was doing that, and this other guy who went to the college that I went to, which was called the Brubeck Institute, it doesn't even exist anymore. It was a small program. It was like 5 musicians. It was kind of like a younger version of the Monk Institute, which is now the Herbie Hancock Institute. How things change over the years. But that doesn't exist. But anyway, so I was there. It was a 5-person fellowship program. It was a blast in my second year. It was Corey Fonville of Butcher Brown, Zach Brown, amazing bassist who plays with Willow Smith, Noah Kelman, a lot of people know him for online stuff, Nick Fernay, who tours with famous artist, I think he's called Benny Sings. Nick was a trumpet player who got into another thing that doesn't exist anymore, which is Grammy Band. He got into Grammy Band
man, I remember that.
3 times. What? Like nobody got into Grammy Band 3 times. It was like one every like 10 years. There would be like some amazing musician who would pull it off in high school. He got into Grammy Band 3 times. And everybody, when they looked at Nick and heard Nick, they would always be like, oh man, like, I don't know how he does it. There's just something there, can't figure it out. It's just like, he just seems to have it down. Like his musicianship, everything, just like every line is just like perfect. And it's true. It was amazing. And he would always say like, oh yeah, I never really practiced that much. Like, man, crazy. Like, damn, like what is it?
Yeah.
And so fast forward to college, he's in the room, and I mentioned that I was working on this Dexter Gordon solo for the first time in all 12 keys. And he's like, oh yeah, that's tough. Jeff used to have me do that. I think his name was Jeff. It was this trumpet player that he used to study with. And we were 18 and 19 at the time. I was like, didn't you study with Jeff when you were 12? And he was like, yeah. And I was like,
wow.
The kid who said he didn't practice.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, yeah, exactly. The kid who said he didn't practice. So some people don't feel like it's practicing. Some people just have fun with it. Sometimes when you think of it as practicing, it's less fun. And so he would always say that he didn't practice, but like he was always playing the trumpet, always playing along with records, always doing things with different phrases and practicing songs in different keys. And like, he was always, you could hear he was challenging himself in the practice room. But he just didn't think of it as practicing,
Wow.
Yeah. Learning new songs.
Yeah.
So all to say, people always respond to my theory that there's no talent. And they're always like, well, the talent is that some people are faster at it. Some people do it faster. It's like, yeah, because they develop the right skills.
Wow.
Anyway, great. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to the masterclass. No, it's a good point that you talk about. You need that to keep getting better, because people talk about the like noob gains. Like when you first start doing something, people think you get better so much faster, and like you can go from never playing a saxophone to playing hot cross buns in a short amount of time. But then after 20 years of playing, it feels like. But I think, like you were saying, it's not necessarily like you get more skills that fast. Well, sure, it takes less to go from 0 to hot cross buns than it does, playing Donnelly up a half step, right? But maybe if people, because when you first start playing, though, you have that hunger to play. Everything is hard. Everything is new to you. So it's like you're not just practicing the same old thing, because there is no same old thing. So after 20 years of playing, if you're only like, all right, today I'll add 1 scale to my playing. You're not doing, when you were 9 years old, 8 years old playing, you were doing like all this new stuff, and that's how you got better. So maybe if you kept that carrot way out in front, when you're older, like, all right, today I'm going to learn 6 new tunes in an hour.
Yes.
Clock, go.
Exactly.
Instead, and because we can just sit there and go, all right, I'm going to practice. I'm so guilty of it. I'm like, all right,
Same.
well, the gig, I have these tunes. I already know these tunes.
Right.
So like,
Right.
all right, cool. I'm going to, but if you say, all right, I'm going to, because remember, like practicing even in college, like juries or something where they like, you have to do this very specific thing.
Right.
It's what is it called? Is it Parkinson's law where the amount of work fills up the amount of time that you give it? So if you say if you give yourself a certain amount of time, you'll slack off. But if you say this practice session, I'm going to get this done, this big amount done, no matter what. Well, it seems like a lot.
Right.
You sometimes find a way to get it done.
Yeah. Sometimes my best practice sessions are when I've got 25 minutes and it's
focus.
Like, God damn it. Like I didn't practice yet today and I got the gig tonight and I swore to myself I was going to do it. And I've got 25 minutes. Just
nothing like a deadline to get you moving.
Yeah. And exactly. And you hit the nail on the head that like when you're younger, everything is new and you need to like keep on doing that. Like I tell people like, man, the millennial generation,
shout out.
Exactly. Yo, shout out.
Shout out this Zoomer over here.
Sorry, guys.
And Dan behind the camera.
Man, so like when we were coming up, we were catching a lot of flack. Like everybody was giving us a hard time because we weren't learning enough standards. And now, like Generation Z, it's like, oh my God, like we know like 3 times as many. Like, dude, like when I was teaching at San Francisco Conservatory, I was just floored. There would be like cats knew like 7 songs, and that was normal. And I want to say that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's cool. Everybody's got to like take their own journey, but. Like, improvisation is all built off of melody, and the phrases are inspired by melody and they become more intricate as they develop and manipulate harmony and embellish harmony and rhythmic embellishment and yada yada yada. But like the source is always melody and melodic structures. And so what I always say is I don't have to learn a single standard in my life now. I don't play restaurant gigs anymore. I did for years. I don't play gigs anymore where I have to learn a bunch of tunes so I can know the tunes for the gig or whatever. Right. All I do now is I play with my quartet. I do guest artist gigs. I go play somewhere with a local band and they're learning my stuff. Or I play with Chris Bodie as a guest. That's all I do. I don't have to learn a single tune in my life. There's no reason for me to ever.
You're done.
Like, I'm working a lot. I'm playing 100 gigs a year or more or whatever. But like, I don't have to learn a new standard for the rest of my life. So I have to really, really have a lot of discipline. Because sometimes I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I go a few months without learning a new tune. And I start to feel like, why do I hate my playing right now? I'm like, because I haven't learned a melody in 3 months. You're not gonna improvise well if you're not learning melodies.
Yeah.
So,
man, I remember when I was taking lessons with you consistently, like that was going back to like the whole like deadline thing. You were very adamant about giving me goals, short-term, long-term goals. And that was a big part of like how I feel like some people get caught up on practicing and they want an immediate result. You know what I mean? Right. And for me, because I was always going for a goal, I never even felt like I was getting better or like working on getting better. It was just like, oh, next goal. Next goal, next achievement, And for me, and that's how I still practice today. And obviously we all get in our heads about, I sound like shit or whatever. But like, I always have like a goal in mind, throughout practicing. And I think that's a big part of kind of like what you guys are talking about in like the deadline thing. And just set a goal for yourself, whether it's learning that tune up a half step or up a tritone or short-term goal or long-term goal of learning 30 tunes in 30 days, whatever.
Right, totally.
But I love that, like you're always having that forward momentum towards something.
Right. And I always set unrealistic goals. Right. As you probably remember, like for myself, for everyone else.
Yeah.
But you should shoot for the stars, land on the moon, or the other way around. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but you set goals that are really hard to achieve and you can't be discouraged when you don't meet them. You have to be resilient.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, man, that is one of the most important things is to push through. Like, you can't get discouraged because for a week or a month or a year even, you have a period where you don't do well in practicing. Like everybody has letdowns. Everybody has periods where they're not accomplishing what they want to accomplish. It's about how you turn that around and flip the script.
How was Ryan as a student?
I'm glad you asked because Ryan was great. There were a lot of Ryans back in the day.
Yeah.
But now there's only Ryan. And that's a lesson. And I mean that like, when I first met Ryan, he was probably like what anybody who would have met me at 15 would have said. Great player. Who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
You know, there isn't really anyone that you meet that's like 15 that's like, oh my God, they're the next big jazz musician, you know?
Yeah.
And when you think that, they usually end up like no idea what they're doing these days or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And so you never really know. There are so many really great players. And that's why it's so cool to see what Ryan is doing now and how incredible Ryan sounds now. And I mean it because the trick is not to just like go like that. The trick is to go because eventually you're up here, you know, and everybody else is flatlined, you know. So that's what was different about Ryan was it was not only that he was making consistent improvement when he was working with me, it was that he continued after, and that improvement, the rate was always consistent and solid.
I think it's a war. I think a lot of this stuff,
Thanks,
like most,
absolutely.
like most jobs, is like a war of attrition.
Yeah.
It's like if you stay in it long enough, like they say that stock market, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So it's like you're always going to hit more setbacks. Like think about like a baseball player. If you get a hit 3 out of every 10 times, 30%. You think 30%, that's an F.
Right.
That's batting 300. You're going to be the second or third batter on any team.
Yeah.
So like you're going to get setbacks.
If you do it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like there's some kids who are like, I've been practicing all the time and I made my All-State band. Why didn't I get picked up by a major band at 18 years old? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Now I'm 19. I guess I'm going to give up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
You got to stay with it. It's that slow. And sometimes there's going to be those dips and you got to be able to, have the mental fortitude to get through, keep practicing, keep going. And it's like,
I also studied with Chad at the perfect time in my life because I had not a lot going on outside of just wanting to be a better saxophone player. And I also looked up to you, as I do now, but looked up to you at that point as whatever Chad says, I'm just going to do it. You know what I mean? I remember you would tell me to do bird solos and 6 keys. And I didn't really understand at the time why, but I was like, okay, Chad told me to do it. I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I trusted you because I wanted to do, I saw all of this and I was like, I just want to do that.
It's so true. Trusting in the process is everything. And for me, it was Josh Redman.
Right.
It was a Josh Redman masterclass that I went to when I was 18. And he was like, I learned XYZ in all 12 keys. And I was like, okay. I don't know why, but I guess I have to do this.
Yeah.
And there's so much distrust, especially nowadays, which is understandable because there's so many sources of information and there are so many relevant and irrelevant and reliable and irreliable sources of information.
Yeah.
It makes sense that there's a sense of distrust in general. But, trust in your mentor. Trust if someone is good at what they do, trust in what they're saying, embrace it and go for it. It's usually the people that, are courageous enough to give it a go and give it a try that experience the benefit from it. And it's the people who are just like, no, I don't know. like that's not going to work, before even trying it. Those are the people who, don't benefit from what they could be benefiting from.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, it was just it was really cool also because I got to, you let me into your process during lessons.
Right.
Like we would talk about how you approach something, and you would write it out for me the way that you thought about it. It was really cool to see that because it made it feel like to me, I could do it. I was like, I'm seeing how he does it.
It's not magic.
Right.
Like you said, it's not like some random
a lot of
fairy
people,
dust.
A lot of people get into the thing of Michael Brecker is an example. He's not human. He's But then you realize we got to go to the Brecker archives and see his notebooks and he was writing that stuff out just like everybody does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He just took it out of and it was cool because I got to see you write etudes. I remember that changed my entire practicing when you would theme etudes on standards based off of a concept we were doing.
Right. Totally.
You just would write it out every 4 bars for me and you would explain exactly how it was done.
Right.
And I remember thinking oh my God, this looks easier than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Right. Totally.
Oh my God, I could rewrite Charlie Parker's solo on ornithology just by change. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a game. It was like a puzzle.
Totally.
Just putting in.
Yeah.
It completely changed the way that I thought about practicing and thought about practicing the things I didn't want to practice. Because I remember when I was with you, all I wanted to do was shred pentatonics, and you were like, Ryan, that's cool and everything, but if you want to get better, you got to do the foundational things.
Totally, yeah.
And I was like,
and then it makes everything else explode from there.
Exactly.
When you get the foundation down.
And I trusted you.
Totally,
to do that.
And I started doing that because I found that etudes really helped me when I was growing up, the etudes that I was learning.
Yeah.
And I saw a video where Eric Marienthal said that he had a mentor that made him write out solos. And so I started doing that. And
it's the tree, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The jazz tree.
Yeah, passing it all down.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good segue into your jazz lesson video mega, that thing that you have that I'm an employee of now. And, you know, it was interesting because I remember talking to you a little bit about this during the last parts of our lessons of like, you were talking about like eventually releasing PDF, but I remember that we had little talks about that. But like, what was your initial maybe thought of like, man, I got to sell this stuff? Or how did you have any thought of like making it a business, or just how did it all started?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was teaching on Skype a lot.
Yeah.
I was also touring a lot. You know, I think a lot of people on YouTube or social media might not even be aware of how long I've been in the game, you know, performing.
Remember, if it's not on the internet, if there's no Instagram video, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
It's not real.
And when you're playing at a theater or something like that, they don't usually get video of that stuff, you know, like it's done, you know, after. And so at that time, I was teaching on Skype. It was before Zoom. And so like I would be on tour for a couple weeks, and then I would come back for a week, and I would teach like 35 lessons on Skype. You know, I would just have my whole studio was like in that week.
Yeah.
And then I would take a few days off. And that was pretty much my schedule. And so during those lessons, people would ask me, how do I get better at this? And to me, the most effective way to do it was, let me put it in a screen share and let me write out something for you.
Yeah.
And over the course of hundreds, I guess thousands of lessons over the years, I had so much material that I figured I would publish it. You know, that was it. It was just a really pretty logical flow, a natural flow to put that stuff out online. And these days it kind of means a lot to me because, you know, as you said, you know, you're one of the coaches in the jazz gym. It's so cool. Like every day we have live sessions. Like if someone wants to join this program, they can every day like study with Ryan Devlin or like Cecil Alexander. Like that's pretty killing. And
which
so,
everybody should, by the way.
Right,
sign up for Jazz Gym.
Right. But like, you know, plug aside, like we live in this age where it costs $65,000 to go to college for jazz. That's just dumb. It makes no sense. You know, it's ridiculous. And like you can get a book instantly for $25, you know, you can get like everything that I've ever put out, you know, for like a few $100s, you know, and that's all the stuff that I was teaching in college anyway. Now, of course, there's value to go into jazz school. I learned some things from jazz school. I had an incredible mentor named Jill Gilman, who, you know, I learned so much from. So there's value, especially to mentorship, you know, which you don't have to necessarily get through school. But we just live in this age where like jazz education has become so absurdly expensive. But I think it's really cool that if you don't have the means, you can just do it through like YouTube. Like there are all these countries in Africa that have better internet now, and like Cuba now, that are starting to tune in a lot and like tag us in videos and stuff like that. And that's so cool to see. Like you just released a video this week that was killing on one chord amps. So great. We have we probably have thousands of hours of content for free on YouTube. That's just pretty cool. Like the fact that can exist.
Yeah.
And, you know, people are still going to jazz school, and that's great, you know, and hopefully on scholarship and hopefully not going too deep into debt from it. But, you know, and of course there's value to it, but it's just awesome that there's this alternative now because there didn't used to be that.
Yeah. It's amazing.
I mean, it's not even for jazz school too, like business stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
You can learn, you know, you can get almost the same as a business degree and learn almost hyper-focused what you want to build from free stuff online or even a course or something, which is a couple $100 versus
right.
60, 70, you know, thousands of dollars.
It's so true. The courses can get so deep.
Yeah.
I know you've got courses out.
Man,
I did my first one the other day, and it's just like, literally, I was like, all right, let me just teach you guys how to take solos in all 12 keys. You know, it's really hard.
Yeah.
So and I'm like literally like singing like a Charlie Brown. I'm like, I'm like playing. It's like, so you want to sing it? Sing it with me now. Sing it with me. Think about the chord. How does it relate to the chord? It's so cool. And you can like put that out.
It's so great though, because like we were talking before about walking the walk, like someone that does it. If I go, all right, I love the way, like there's a million, if I type in Google or YouTube, how do I play, how do I learn a jazz standard? Click.
Right.
Your video is going to come up, your videos are going to come up, but also other random people are going to come up. So if they know you're playing, they know you can walk the walk.
Yeah.
They find your videos. Okay, there's a bunch of random stuff online, but there's no curation. Oh, you have stuff. Usually when people sell stuff, it's because they curated information, whether it's in a PDF book or a course or whatever. So now you're distilling all your information down, teaching it to them for this smaller price point, hyper-focused. You know that you want to learn like you. And it's like so much more efficient to get to that next point versus going to a jazz school where you might connect with the person. You might like, oh, by the way, when you signed up, we had all these sax teachers, but they retired over the summer. Now you're getting this random person and you're in for $60,000. Wait a minute. Or I can, so I love it. So that's great that you kind of pioneer. Totally. I mean,
nobody checks your degree after you graduate. Like I was literally a professor at like 5 years, like for 5 years at Asaf Conservatory. And I stopped doing it because I was touring too much. So I couldn't do it anymore. But when I started doing it, I was like, are they going to look at my, like, am I going to get this gig? Because I don't have a degree. I dropped out of college, It doesn't matter, in jazz, you don't need it. Now, stay in school, kids.
We're talking a lot about like,
because there is some relevance to having a degree. There are, I'm sure, some institutions that wouldn't allow you to be a professor. If you want to be full-time in music education, of course, I'm sure there's value to it. And, usually when someone drops out, they have their reasons for doing it, like a really good opportunity that they're pursuing. Yeah. There are plenty of people who are super successful who stayed in school and graduated, So don't feel like you need to drop out, but also don't feel like you need to go into debt to study jazz.
Yeah, no one's gonna ask you for your degree after you get off the stage with Chris Bodie.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean?
Great show, man.
Right. Yeah.
One thing, I just got to check your papers real fast.
Exactly.
Speaking of gigs,
great segue.
Everything's a little too positive right now. A little too many smiles.
Yeah,
Chad, we have a little segment we like to call Gig Horror Stories. Horror stories. So,
whatever you're comfortable with sharing. By
can
the
you
way.
think of something that either went wrong on the gig, or it was a weird gig, or just something not? And you don't have to name names, or you can.
You can absolutely can.
We encourage that, but whatever.
Okay, yeah. All right. Can I give one? I'm going to give one funny, ridiculous one. Yeah. I'm going to give one really meaningful one, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
Absolutely.
So the really funny, like, worst gig story would be, speaking of jazz school, I'm 21, and I'm going to new school, and it's the holidays, and nobody's in school. It's like a break time. It's not, school is not in session, but some people are going into play sessions and stuff like that. And the gig office director, he came up to me and was like, "You're in town. Like, would you want to play a gig tonight? We got a call for a funny one." I was like, "Sure." Like, I'm 21. And it's like, whatever. I'll play whatever gig. Like, I'll go in the subway for tips. Like, it's like whatever. It's all good. And so I was like, "Yeah, hit me with it. Like, I'm game." And so he sends me the details, and pretty much it's like this apartment on the Upper East Side, which is the real like old money part of New York, And it's a going away event for someone who's moving to New Orleans. And they want me, the gig is just that they want me to come in and play When the Saints Come Marching In as a surprise. And I'm like, all right, that's great. Cool. Just pop in, play for a few minutes, surprise the guests, like whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm on the Upper East Side, and I go through like the service entrance, like talk to the doorman. I go through like the service entrance, come through a back elevator. And it's the Upper East Side. I'm just expecting it to, to be some old money crew, some guy's going to come to the door like in a suit, like smoking a cigar. And he's like, "Oh, good, you're a sax player, huh?" And it was like a probably like 27-year-old girl. And she opens the door and she's like, "Hey, so glad you could come." and she's like, "Yeah, so pretty much when you hear me say this as a cue, like you're gonna come in and like you're gonna play it." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And like when the door is open, I notice like I don't hear much noise in the background. Again, I'm expecting like 100 people. And I'm just gonna come in. Everybody's gonna be like, "Hey, when Saints come watching in, yeah, cool," because she's moving to New Orleans. And so I go in and I do it, and I'm playing When the Saints Come Marching In, and I get out to the dining room where she tells me to go through the kitchen, come out to the dining room, and it's 5 girls sitting at a table. And I'm like, this is so awkward, most awkward moment of my life. And they're like, "Yay!" And like a little confused. We're like, "Okay, I don't know why she did this." but okay. And so I do that. And I just play for a second, and they're like, "All right," and then she's like, and I noticed that there's a 6th chair that's empty, and I just assume that it's for whatever guest has not arrived yet, And so she goes, "That was so great. So now can you just play some dinner music for like, a little while?" And like,
here we go.
I'm 21. Like I don't have any backbone. I'm also just sort of going with the flow. Would be a more positive way of looking at it, I guess. And I'm like, okay. So I just play solo saxophone, like "Fly Me to the Moon" and stuff like that while they have dinner, and it's just so funny and the most awkward thing ever. And they're just like talking about high school gossip and stuff like that. And then, so after like 15 minutes, she's like, "That was so great. Okay, so this chair's for you. So why don't you go ahead and just have dinner with us?"
Oh man.
Like, okay.
Uh-oh.
So
then he wakes up 3 days later.
Yeah.
Oh no.
With no clothes on.
So that was pretty much the climactic moment. It didn't get too crazy from there. At least on the record, it didn't. No, I'm just kidding. No, it from there. It was just super awkward for like 20 minutes. I just hung out and ate dinner, and they would just talk their gossip and then look at me every once in a while. They're like, "So," and blah, blah, blah. And after 20 minutes, I was like, "All right, so I think I'll get going if that's okay." And she was like, "Sure." She was like, "You sure you don't want to stay around?" I was like, "I think I'm good." And so, that was the most awkward, I guess, in a way, worst gig that I've played.
I'm sure they see videos of you now where they're like, "Oh my God, dude, we had him here before he was famous."
Oh, I'm sure they have no idea. And that gets into what we were talking about earlier. Before recording today. But there's so many different levels of fame. Like I never would have dreamed that I could like be in an airport and get stopped multiple times for pictures. That would never have happened in the 90s. I mean, maybe a few jazz musicians, right?
Sure.
But we're in an age where there are so many different types of fame. I can do that, yet still 99.9% of the world has no idea.
Sure.
Well, it's because that we think we get in this like the echo chamber of the internet of like, "Oh my God, there's so many jazz saxophonists. I'll never make it." There's so many, but like, how many jazz saxophonists really are there out of 7 billion people in the world?
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Look
yeah, it is a small world for sure.
So we think it's like, it's like such a big thing, but
yeah, totally.
By the way, hot take, going off your story, there's so many people that think they want solo saxophone. I don't think they know what like justice. I think they think it's going to be like Careless Whisper with like a backing track out of nowhere with reverb and like no, you're going to hear like you're going to hear air.
Well, not Chad.
Well, no, not him.
Oh yeah, when I play solo saxophone.
Yeah. No. But like, you know what I mean? Like you're just going to hear a saxophone like ta, like that's it. There's no like.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't think people realize.
And not to go into the practicing direction, but like that is such a great challenge too. If you're ever like, let me play for an hour and actually like play something, not as if a rhythm section is behind me, but let me try to like play a solo performance like for an hour. That used to be something that I would have my students at SF do.
Oh yeah.
But let me tell one meaningful gig story as well. Just because after that one. So,
hell yeah.
I played in I think the town was called Torreon. I'm not saying it right. In Mexico, years ago with Clarence. It was one of the first tours that I did, and it was like 2.5 weeks in Mexico. And it was just the best. Mexico is just like my favorite country, and we played at this concert hall. And after there was like a meet and greet after, and we were outside. And it was just this beautiful night, and all these people were like very emotional, like sort of like dabbing at their eyes, and the concert promoter came over and was like, this really meant a lot to the community. He was touring around with us. He wasn't from that town or that city. And he was like, yeah, this really meant a lot because, 7 or 8 years ago, there was a mass shooting in this area and there hadn't been a performance at this concert hall for a really long time. Whoa. And so the fact that they're all back here and listening to this moving concert and, being immersed in art again is just so meaningful for them. And so that was for me like one of the first times where I really felt beyond just the applause. I first really felt like how moving a performance can be. So total opposite of the Upper East Side, walking through the kitchen and playing When the Saints Go Marching In, for 5 27-year-olds.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love beautiful. That is beautiful.
And it's easy to forget, like, as musicians, when we, especially as jazz musicians, because we get so wrapped up in, we have to practice so much, on our own in, confinement in rooms, and sometimes we forget how meaningful the work that we put into our music can be for other people, what that experience can be for them, whether they're musicians or not. Like jazz musicians tend to just feel like, oh, only jazz musicians like jazz. Like, yeah, well, only jazz musicians like maybe actually, I was going to say maybe like super out jazz, but that's not even true. Like, man, if you go to Europe and play some super abstract shit, like, man, they're so into it. Places in America, like, there are pockets of appreciation for all types of music. But yeah, I think a lot of times jaded musicians can be like, nobody likes jazz music. But man, like, there are jazz concerts happening all over the world for thousands of people every night, and they're loving it. So
I was in an Uber ride going into the city today from Astoria, and the guy who was driving was a Moroccan guy, and he saw all my saxophone. I had a soprano and everything with me. And he's like, he was asking me about stuff. And I said, jazz music. And he immediately turned on his favorite radio station. Yeah. And it was like playing like Frank Sinatra. He's like, man, I love this music. Do you play with a singer? And like, he was like asking me all these questions. He's and man, even in my country, like they have jazz and it's like so great. And then he goes, I know it's not about the money, but like, it's such a beautiful music.
You should have stopped and be like, no, it is, man. Right, dude, it is. Stop.
But man, that's also such a myth, because man, I know some incredibly rich jazz musicians. I'm not gonna say name for sake of privacy, but like the wealthiest musicians I know are making some outrageous concert fees. So like, man, if you are dreaming of being a successful jazz musician, like that can absolutely happen. It's like, man, you can make anything happen in life. Is it really, really hard? Do the vast majority of people not pull it off? Yes. Yeah. But like, and to get there, you have to put the music first too.
Yeah.
Like you can't care about the money. Like it has to be the music first.
Kenny G said the same thing about like being like successful. And like, he had this thing about, which is very similar to what you just said about being good versus being great. He's like, there's a ton of people that are good. Like, but you have to always strive and put in the tough work. But like, you can do it. He was like, he had this story. He's like, he just went to like George Benson's like agent and just drove there and said, hey, I have this. He didn't have an appointment or anything. He's like, I have this gig in LA. I want you to go to it so you can hear me play. And then the guy showed up and then boom, he hired him.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's like, I just did that because I wanted to, And he's like, if you really want something, just go out and do it. It's still possible. But I feel like it is a very big stereotype that like, like when I told Riley's, my wife's parents that I was a jazz musician before we were married, they were like, oh,
Yeah.
They even told Riley told me later on, they were like, are we sure about this guy? I don't know about this. Like, what does he actually want to do? You know? And obviously they see that I'm driven and all this stuff. But I think it's a absolutely common stereotype that like, oh, you're just going to play bar gigs for the rest of your life, make $50 and never go anywhere. But I mean, look at guys like you and there are other names too. Like
even when I was playing bar mitzvahs and weddings and restaurants and teaching 16-year-olds, that weren't like super serious about stuff. Like, man, you can put that stuff together. Like even when I was in my early mid-20s, it's not like I was making a ton of money, but I was doing better than most of the people that I went to high school with in terms of earnings as a saxophonist. So it's like, as you said, you're driven.
Yeah.
You'll make it happen if you have that that vision to make it all work, you can absolutely pull it off. But it's not about the money. And a lot of times the people who end up most successful, are people who were like just eating dollar slice pizzas, as I did for a while too, but like eating dollar slice pizzas for like 10 years and then like just dedicating themselves 110% to their art. And then finally things click, So there's no right path.
Yeah.
But you can absolutely make it happen.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of musicians sell themselves short or undercut the business by just assuming that's something they shouldn't charge a certain amount or taking gigs that are less? I'm just thinking about what you're saying about like getting out of bed for a certain amount, but like,
right.
Do you think there's some people that could, and maybe it helps all of us? There's that thing about
or maybe there's a line.
Right.
Is there? Yeah. What do you think? There's a lot of that.
Yeah. I heard a rumor. I have no idea if there's any validity to this, but I heard a rumor that Miles Davis, towards the end of his life, said that he had to charge $1 million so Herbie could charge $500,000. I have no idea if that's true at all, so.
You gotta set the going rate.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there have been moments where I've been like, oh yeah, actually I should start to charge higher for XYZ because I want the guy who's, 5 or 10 years younger than me, to be able to charge that, and so, yeah, I think there is sort of a responsibility that comes with setting rates. And if you're young and playing gigs for tips is still bringing value for you, if it's helping you in some way, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it. But yeah, there definitely comes a time when maybe you need to set the standard and ask for what you're worth. And if you feel like you don't have any leverage, then go back to the practice room, get on the computer, and figure out how you can bring leverage to the table, and take your career to the next step.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool to hear about your driven, because like you said, like when you were when I started studying with you, you were like 25, 26 probably. I think. Maybe 27.
Jeez, yeah,
maybe.
Right. And so, because you would have been
18, 19, something like that.
Wow, time flies. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's almost 10 years ago, man.
Yeah, wow, crazy.
Wow. And you just went to my wedding. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Great wedding, bro.
Oh, yeah, bro. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, man. Yeah, sick. Insert the picture here.
Right,
yeah. I was actually, we'll probably cut this, but quick story about Dad, Devlin again. He was like, Ryan, you should set up a photo booth for Chad. At the wedding, he was like, man, you should have a photo booth for all your friends to go take pictures with him. I was like, I feel like Riley wouldn't be down with that, but
I felt bad because there was one kid who I think like wanted to say hey, and he came and said hey, and like I was just doing like my typical like meeting someone who knows my music type of thing, which was like nice. So where are you from? Like where you going to school? Like. And at that time, he was probably like 3 drinks in and just like wanted to party, but also just wanted to like, knew he wanted to say before the end of the night that he said hi to Chad.
Yeah.
And so like, I was probably like holding him back. And then I was like, oh, he actually probably doesn't want to talk to me.
Oh, you just want to say hi.
I was like, all right, cool. Well, anyway, thanks for saying hey.
Going back to the bar, man. Can you wrap this up?
Hey, man, come on. That's so funny.
It's like, I'm trying to do Jaeger bombs over there with my bros.
Oh, man. Oh,
not trying to talk about like pentatonics and where to go to jazz school.
That's so funny. Oh, man.
Yeah. But we all have that. We have like our normal life and our music life.
And that's why we created this podcast, because we want to see people's like behind, quote unquote, behind the scenes of what they do. You know what I mean?
Right,
and like get to know people from a different angle, because I mean, that's when I got to see my favorite music, including you, like when you came to Florida for the first time, like getting to talk to you after the gig or before the gig or whatever. It's like so cool because that human aspect comes back into it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh man, he's just like us. You know what I mean? Like,
when I was, so I always try to do that. I always try to come out and talk to people because to me, it's just like, man, I'm a jazz musician and I have fans. That means the world to me. Who would have thought I'm playing the least popular music in the world? And people are like fans of me. Like people want my autograph. Like, so I always try to come right out.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was interesting when I was younger, I would see musicians that I was a fan of and jazz musicians, and they wouldn't come out after a lot. And like sometimes I would know someone, like some teacher, someone who would like bring me back to say hey to them. And I thought it was interesting that they were just sort of like, hanging out backstage. And I was like, I'm never going to do that. Fast forward to now, again, I always try to come out. I always try to say, hey. But after years of doing this thing, you start to understand, because like it gets to a point where, you know, like you get out and you just don't want to hear another person go like, my nephew plays saxophone. Let me tell, not like you. Yeah. Like one of these days I would just want to be like, man, I would hope not. Like if they play it like me, then give me their number because I want to study with them. Like I want to be their friend. But yeah, you get so much of that. And it's fascinating. Now looking back, I wonder if like some of my heroes and people who I think of as like jazz celebrities, like, are they walking out, like, you know, and like getting some of that, like, you know, is Chris Potter like going out into the audience and they're like, yeah, I used to play saxophone for 1 year, like back in band. I didn't really like it, but anyway, good show. You know?
What's your weird? Do you have a weird fan interaction?
Oh man.
I mean, you've had
besides my dad.
Right? Oh, no, not at all. Your dad is the best.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just like, you know.
Yeah.
Because that person is 100% watching this.
Oh, totally.
So this shout out to you.
Yeah, weird fan interaction.
Well, like just funny. It doesn't have to be weird.
Right.
You know,
yeah, I guess, I mean, there's...
memorable.
Can I
Can
I share one?
One?
I have one that's related to you.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I was at the Mingus Festival this year. This person is definitely watching this, so I apologize. I was at the Mingus Festival, and with a jazz band that I was helping out in Boston, we came down and I was chaperoning. And I was down like in the warm-up area, and this kid came over to me and he was like, "Are you Ryan Devlin?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "I just want to tell you one thing." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "I don't know if you know this, but you sound so much like Chad Lefkowitz Brown." I'm not even, that's what he said verbatim. And I went first of all went, "How dare you?"
No.
I love it.
I was
Well,
like,
you don't, and I mean that in a good way.
Well, yeah,
I mean, first of all, why would you want to sound like me? Ugh. But no, seriously.
Come on.
All right.
Seriously, man. You have absolutely your own unique voice.
well, totally. I appreciate that, but I you know, all joking aside, I definitely took it as a compliment. And then I told him like, "Oh, well, I studied with him for 3 years, you know, and stuff. He's a huge influence on me." Right. But I just thought that was like, he was like, "I have one thing to tell you."
You're like, "Oh man, what are you gonna say?"
I thought he was gonna be like, "Oh, dude, I love your record."
Yeah.
You know? It's like, well,
I think a lot of people don't realize like that is kind of a weird thing. Like when someone's like, "Yo, man, dude, you sound great. You sound just like Dick Oates," and I'm like, like he's a big influence, but like, damn, I want to. Okay, thanks.
I get some people still these days. I try to never look at comments, honestly. I'm barely on social media other than like whatever I need to do to like get a post off or something like that. But like every once in a while, I see like, you sound just like someone, and I'm like, who? You know, I've like never listened to them in my life. But I think a lot of like having your own sound in other people's eyes or ears is just hearing you enough. Like, you know,
totally.
Yeah. Once you listen to someone enough, then you start to identify their distinct sound. So sometimes if they hear you for a split second, they might be like, you sound like Michael Brecker, you sound like Josh Roman, you sound like Chris Potter. And a lot of times there's relevance to that because we're taking influence from them. But then once they hear you for 5 times, then they're telling someone else that they sound like you know? So like, that's just a natural evolution of, I think, being heard more, you know, as you develop your career. You know?
Totally. Yeah, I thought it was a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Man.
You're not getting out of the question, though. Who's your weirdest fan interaction?
Man, I think it's just been like just very quick, like, you know, like somebody's super drunk or something like that. You know, there was one lady who like tried to kiss me in front of my wife. That was a good one. Whoa. That was a good one. Yeah.
Like on the lips.
Like I maybe was kind of going for that. Like, you know, I think I redirected to the cheek. Sure. I think was the type of thing.
Yeah.
But like, you know, Melissa was like taking the picture for her.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and she was like, "Can I kiss you?"
Really, she asked. That's nice of her.
And I was like, awesome. You'd have to ask her. And Melissa was like,
yeah.
So that was a funny one.
That's awesome.
Has anybody ever talked about your hip swiveling?
You know, every once in a while. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Every once in a while,
I don't allow my wife to watch your videos because I'm just kidding.
You saw that clip, right?
I saw that clip, and that was funny.
Man, Chad's got those hips when he plays. You can always ask him.
Bro, he's
He's a master.
Just a little two-step. That's all you need.
Oh yeah.
But he's got like the circular hip thing. You ever seen these videos?
Yes,
Dude.
I have.
Because-
Riley can't watch that.
So that show was in Spain.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my parents never come to see me in Europe, obviously, because like they're not going to fly to Europe to see me play. But they saw that show because my dad is actually fluent in Spanish. He used to teach Spanish as well as music.
Whoa. Cool.
And loves Spain. And so every few years they go there. And so I played in Spain and they went and Melissa was there, my wife as well. And we kind of made a little family trip out of it, which was super fun. But at that show where you guys used that clip, Melissa after was like, did you know that your hips were like extra active tonight? I was like,
we used the right clip.
no,
Dan.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I had no clue. Like, it's totally
it.
subconscious.
That's
It's-
that's the best part, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Totally. Yeah. I see it sometimes looking back and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's intense. But
I think it's
but,
great.
But you know what it is? Honestly, as a sax player, you need to stay on the mic.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can
can't.
do,
Yeah.
like unless you're using a wireless. And sometimes people are like, "Why don't you use a wireless?" It's like, first of all, I use whatever fucking mic they have in the venue. Like, I don't
Yeah.
I'm not like going around with, and some people do this, so nothing against that. But I'm not like going around with my mic in my case.
Right.
And like
Kenny Garrett, because he's all over the place, so he needs a clip on.
Totally. Yeah. And when I play with Bodie, they set up the wireless, and I love it. They've got a really nice one. They use this amazing Bricasti reverb, which is like this analog reverb that sounds amazing, and great sound tech and yada yada. But like in general, I'm just going whatever they've got there, and I just love an SM58. Like, man, that's the OG baby. Like, it just sounds great.
Yeah.
But anyway, like if it's on a mic stand, there's only so many movements that you can really do to like still stay on. And like, man, one of the like bringing it back to like, coaching jazz musicians, because I'm all about that, I guess, but one of the things that I always tell students, if I do a masterclass where people are playing and I'm like watching them and giving them feedback, I'm like, y'all are some stiff ass, things that I can't say, but like, man, like one of the best ways to have a good time is to like start feeling the time somewhere,
Absolutely.
And so when I'm really trying to get into the groove, I'm just like so focused on that. And I guess things start happening.
Hey, man.
Things that my wife after is like, "Hey babe, did you know?"
That's awesome.
that was a little much.
I love it though. Yeah, Nathan,
thanks.
you need to teach Nathan how to do
Right,
it. He's
right,
way too stiff.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's that classical thing,
Right.
But he's also like, man, his phrasing, man. Nathan he's a badass. you know?
Man, yeah.
Yeah, so-
But aside from the playing,
maybe that's right.
yeah. Aside from his playing is great. Nathan, I know you're watching
We
this.
love you, buddy.
We just want you to like just kind of get in there a little bit. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's part of
Zach will help him out.
Maybe that's part of his musicianship, like part of what makes it so, because like everything is so calculated, but in like a really good way. Like every phrase is like, damn, that was perfect. Damn, that was perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. He's just like,
he's like a robot.
He's like in meditation mode.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He did talk about, when we interviewed him, he talked about like he was trying samurai tactics mentally while playing.
Oh, that's cool.
So maybe he was just like harnessing some of that.
Do you guys meditate at all?
I used to.
Yeah.
I don't really do it much anymore.
Yeah, I've
What
gotten
about
super
you?
into it. Yeah, that's cool. I used to do it. Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten super into it.
Really?
The only thing is like I find as I add more and more to my life, like the things that I need to do is like part of my routine. Like I'm going to meditate, like I'm going to work out, I'm going to practice. Like I do that every day, no matter what, even if I'm on tour or whatever, unless the tour schedule is just impossible to do that. Like, you get in at 3 p.m. and the sound check's at 4:30 or whatever.
Sure.
But I do that pretty much every day. And the only thing is like the more that I add to like my routine, the more I find that I almost like have to do just to feel normal. Sometimes it's like, now I have to do so much, just like feel on my A game.
Yeah.
But it's also just like tiny improvement. Like there's this book called Atomic Habits. That's great. And it talks about how, we're either like improving, we're either progressing or we're regressing, like, and so you have to really push yourself to always be kind of improving and progressing. And it's all about these like tiny increments, like you try every day, you try to do just like 1% better than you did yesterday, or 1% better than your original plan was. You're just always pushing yourself a little bit. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Speaking of that, what other things do you enjoy, I guess, outside of music, I would say,
Yeah.
like, teaching, performing, practicing, like other stuff, like not music related stuff.
Nothing super fancy. Yeah, I have that routine. I work out, I meditate, I read books. I didn't used to read, but I went a long time. I talked to a buddy of mine actually earlier today who was like, I haven't finished a book, since I graduated from high school. And that was me for a long time. But you know what I do? I do the Bob Mintzer approach. Bob Mintzer writes multiple big band arrangements at a time. It's not like he just does one, starts one, and then finishes it. Big band arrangements or originals or charts. He does multiple at a time. So I do that same thing with reading books. Now I finally finish books because I don't just go start to the finish. And I realize I do the same thing with practicing, and I think a lot of us do. Like, if you just say like, oh, I'm going to, learn this 7-minute solo and it's going to be the only thing I practice for the next 5 months, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get like 3 days into it and never touch the saxophone again.
Right.
You always have to balance and so that's what I do with books. So that
you still play basketball?
I never really played basketball seriously. I did that a little bit, just like in a rec league with some jazz musicians who were like, "Hey, you're tall, play basketball."
Nice.
But yeah, mostly I just every once in a while I watch hockey and just like cry myself to sleep, like, "Oh, what could have been?" NHL. Just wake up like,
oh my god, where are my skates?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Who's a good basketball player? James San Angelo.
Oh, in Philly.
In Philly,
wow.
Great piano player. He's a killer basketball player.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of great
James.
jazz musician basketball players. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I think our last segment that I want to end with, because we always need to end with something a little spicy, is hot takes.
Yeah.
So this could be in music, out of music, and this also, you're not just only on the hot seat. We also have to share hot takes.
Okay.
So it's not just you.
Okay.
So if you have one right off the bat, you're more than welcome to go first. Since
Let me hear yours first, and then see if I can come up with one.
Dave?
Yeah.
You always have hot takes.
I did.
Always.
It's just which one do I want to?
Right.
I need a topic of life, because I like non-music hot takes.
Okay.
I give enough music hot takes online enough as it is.
Well, I have a good hot take.
Go first.
So this is a fresh hot take. I was flying in from Boston this last coming here on yesterday night, and from Boston to Boston Logan to LaGuardia is like a 45-minute flight. Always super easy. I usually fall asleep, and then by the time I wake up, I'm here. But this time I was like looking at some music and shedding, like mentally, whatever. And like I noticed that the captain comes on to give the final descent note, or like the initial descent notice, whatever. And we're like right. I could see the skyline of Manhattan, right? We're like right over here. And we just make this left turn. We're getting really close to the buildings. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I've never been over here before. So then we go past, and I'm like, we're going to LaGuardia. LaGuardia is like this way. What is Also, nothing happening from the captain. Just everybody's cool. Then we make this U-turn and come back around to this side of the city and do the same thing. And I'm also looking at the person next to me. Sorry. And we're both like kind of like looking at each other and like looking outside and like very because we're just getting lower and lower and just like circling. And I'm like, what is going on? Like I can like see the building like really close. And I'm like, this is really never happened to me before. And then we just land like normal. And my hot take is, if you're going to circle around Manhattan, please tell us. Please. Because I lost years on my life, I think, stressing. No lie, I almost called Riley.
Right.
I'm like, I was scared. And I fly a lot nowadays. Like, I'm usually not afraid on planes. Like, I'm cool.
Right.
But nothing from the captain.
Yeah.
I've never taken this flight path before.
Right.
I don't know if this is a common one.
Right.
We went all the way around at a very low altitude.
Right.
So my hot take for all the pilots listening is, please tell the passengers if you're going to circle around Manhattan. Okay.
There are a lot of things that will happen that like my MO, my modus operandum, or however you say, like these days with flying, it's just like, it's always normal. Don't worry about it. Because there are a lot of things like strange things have happened over these, like landing and then
taking back off.
Yeah, exactly. Like boom,
touch and go.
Yeah, and it's because like you're coming in too fast, I guess, and they with the winds, and they determine it's not safe, so they just go back up, and then they circle around. And I remember the first time that happened, I was like,
yeah.
There's definitely a lot of
Wesley
stuff.
Chin is a pilot.
That's right.
Yeah.
I still got to pay him.
Yeah. All right. Hot take related to cars. I'm big into cars and racing and stuff.
I like this.
But just in general, everybody out there, if you own a car, even if you don't own a car, you're going to be in a car one day. This is also spawned by Adam Nussbaum's story of Brecker and these guys heading to Newport.
Yeah.
Guys, learn how to change a tire. It's so simple. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Loosen the lug nuts first with the jack under, but don't jack it up yet so the tire doesn't spin. Jack it up, you take it off, put the spare on, you tighten it back down in a star pattern, you're done. 5 minutes.
Got a good YouTube video on that.
5 minutes. I need to make one.
Sell a PDF package.
Dude, I'll do one while playing freaking giant steps on soprano on my left hand, and I bet you I can still do it faster than... Apparently, Brecker didn't know how to change a tire. No one in the band did except for Adam, and he was pissed. The driver of the van, the tour van, didn't know how to change it.
You should do it with a saxophone. Use a saxophone to prop up the tire.
That's a great idea. Listen, we got to cut that, so if the video goes super viral, I don't have to owe him any money. Cut that.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. But I mean, and what we were told when we were in college, and it was like one of the real life things they actually taught us was leave enough time getting to a gig to change a flat tire. They're like, if you get into an accident or something, you can't do anything about it. Yeah. But like flat tires are going to happen in your life. It's happened to me multiple times. Like leave enough time, like test it at home. How long does it take you on the side of the road? Make sure you have the right stuff, because it could be the one gig where it was your big break. And if you're sitting on the side of the road for 4 hours because you don't know how to change a tire,
right?
It's just like
survival tips.
It's just like it's really easy. Kate knows how to do it. I taught her how to do it.
Wow.
It's so easy. Guys, I'll teach you.
Shut up.
I'll teach you.
It's a good hot take.
There, sorry, yeah.
Wow.
Just learn how to change a tire. Everybody. This isn't a man, woman, everybody. Kids, babies, learn how to change a tire. I'll teach kindergartners.
Well, the only thing that's coming to mind is a musical one.
That's okay.
That's okay. A musical.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
All right. Here's my hot take. The idea that you should never read a solo transcription.
Ooh.
Bullshit.
I love it.
Bullshit.
Ooh.
If you're a developing musician, that's like telling someone that to learn French from scratch, the best thing to do is to record, how do you say his name? Like Emmanuel Macron, like the French president. Just record him for 2.5 minutes. Write down what you hear for 2.5 minutes and, learn that back and you'll be fine. Like, no, it's literally like none of that is going to make sense to you. Like the meaning of it, like nothing will make sense. So like when you're first learning transcriptions, it's totally fine to read the transcription. We all did it. I can say that with 99% confidence. Everybody's first transcriptions they're reading. Sometimes I'll even read a transcription nowadays. The fastest way to memorize, I think, is the bestest way to do it. The most efficient way for you to memorize the music is the best way to do it. That's what internalizes the fastest. You will improve by doing that to the point where you don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah.
I learn like a minute of music, a minute of a solo in an hour typically. Like bang, bang, I've got it. I don't need to ever look at the music again when I'm transcribing because of years of studying it, understanding how it lines up with chords, all that stuff. And there are so many people who learn it on their own and they learn it wrong. Like it's a mess. It's so wrong. Now some of the transcriptions are written wrong. That's a drag, But I think that's bullshit. That the first transcriptions you ever do, like you should never read it. No, first transcriptions you do. For sure. So I always tell people memorize at least like 3 or 4 transcriptions by reading them. But memorize it. That's what the people don't do. They don't memorize it. Of course, it does nothing for you if you don't memorize it. Then you're just reading a foreign language. So memorize it. Understand how it works with a harmony. Learn how it works with a harmony. Analyze the phrasing. Analyze the rhythm. Listen to the recording. And of course, you still need to listen to it. See if all the notes are right. Get the inflections. All that. Then after 3 or 4, then you can memorize your own. Then you can learn your own by ear. A zillion times faster. Even if you have perfect pitch. Man, when I was teaching at SF Conservatory, there are a couple students that went through that perfect pitch, and I still had better ears then. And I didn't have perfect pitch. And that's a lesson. Like people don't get it. Like they think like, oh, if you have perfect pitch, it means automatically you can hear everything in music that's ever happened. No. Like the students that I had with perfect pitch, I was like, bro, really? Like, you don't hear it's this. You hear it, and it's like, oh, yeah, exactly. And then I would like learn the transcription faster than them.
Yeah.
And so like, and eventually one of them in particular develops better ears than me, and good on him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the point is, it's not like you're just born with perfect pitch and it's like, great, you're done. You can learn listen to his Stravinsky score and you know every note. Like, no, you have to activate that shit. There's relative pitch is a whole other thing. So there are my hot takes. Yeah,
I love that.
So good.
I have so many more now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't want this episode to go on for absolutely ever.
Yeah.
But we've been going for about an hour. Yeah, Dan's sleeping in New York City today.
Editor Dan, you guys might see Editor Dan on the.
We have this thing on the show where Dan's never been on camera, so they don't know if he actually exists.
They've never heard him either.
So he's just a persona.
They don't know he's AI.
No, they don't know. Well, now they know.
Right. He might be. Wait, sorry.
No. Yeah, it's okay.
I think I got trolled by AI today on a comment.
Really?
They commented something at the top, and then it was like this Wikipedia response, and I was like, is that ChatGPT? Are the bots coming after me?
Yo.
So I'm not sure about this. I got to figure.
It's a new age.
I got to ask some 14-year-old to help me out. I'm sure they'll figure it out faster than I can.
I think soon AI. Here's another hot take.
Let's go.
Bonus hot take. I think soon AI will play improvised music in jazz and just do music just as well, if not better than us. I think soon. Drum
machines have existed for a while. Why are
Totally.
drummers out of work?
Right. But the thing is that I don't think it will matter because nobody wants to see robots on stage. They want to see humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do still think that the optimist in me still thinks and hopes that there might be something special going on here that they'll never get. Like, I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried because, think of it, Deep Blue beat Kasparov at chess years ago. We're still watching chess.
Yeah.
There's still chess fans.
Yeah.
There's still chess players making more money than ever, winning tournaments, It doesn't matter, we still want to see humans do shit.
Yeah.
How about Jeopardy? Remember way back they had IBM was it the Watson robot or whatever?
Right.
Wins on Jeopardy because it just knows everything.
It's wipe the floor.
There's still it's like, what do you do with that?
There's no story behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best thing about sports is there's a chance that the guy's not going to be great that night. You know what I mean? I think golf is a great example. Scotty Scheffler right now is
he is a robot though.
Whoa.
Dude, he has to be
crazy. So Tiger Woods, people said that too. But the great part about it is that when he didn't win, everybody would want to watch that next tournament after he didn't win because it's like a revenge tour. Is he going to win again? The whole and if a robot's just perfect at everything, what's the you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, sometimes I just take bad solos.
Yeah.
So the next solo will be extra impressive.
Totally.
That's totally.
Yeah, man. I can list all your bad solos. I really know all of them.
That'd be a great excuse, though.
Man. It would be.
After show, it's oh yeah, man. Those second and third tunes,
Setting up my redemption.
That's
arc.
one thing that I've learned, though. That's one thing you don't learn in jazz school that you probably should, is the pacing of a full set. And that's one thing that I learned from Clarence, and it's taken me years to learn in the time since then. Man. It's not about the shape of a solo. It's about the shape of a show, of a set. You know?
An hour.
And yeah, exactly. And the tough thing about social media is that literally the first 3 seconds are everything. Social media, Instagram especially, has no patience for an actual well-paced solo. Yeah. My best stuff, nobody's gonna care. We post something that just gets to level 9, within the first 3 seconds. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
Which is that's a funny thing about, being a musician in the age of social media, the implications for, putting out your music and the feedback that you'll get for it.
Man. Yeah. That's another. Well, first of all, I wanted to put a disclosure out. You don't take any bad solos.
Yeah.
I just want to put that out there. But also,
everybody thinks they sound like shit.
Of course.
Yeah.
Man, everyone. I've heard that even Michael Brecker himself, would just have nights where, he was really frustrated with his playing. And I don't want to go into detail because there were stories that I heard privately, and I want to respect that. But same with Coltrane, these guys, they became so absolutely incredible because they held themselves to such a high standard.
Absolutely.
And so it's funny when sometimes a kid or even an adult, is working on improving their playing, they'll ask you, like, does it get to a point where like you're happy?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is perspective. You'll never have the days where you stop. Like, you're always going to have the days where you feel like shit about your playing, and like that's never going to stop. But I did find, I don't know what you guys think, but for me, I felt like something clicked when I got to that 10,000 hours point. Like they talk about the 10,000 hours rule. I do think that like if I do the math on how old I was and when I got to that point, something clicked where it's not like I just became happy with my playing every day, but I felt kind of a peace and contentment with something about my musicianship, like a confidence, like I can play, even if some days I still feel like I'm a joke,
Yeah, I think we all have that. Yeah, I remember totally. we talked about that in lessons, like get to that 10,000 hour mark and then reassess, a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which I think is totally true. Yeah. And one of the like little hot take thing that you made me think of is like, what is your opinion on if you can only teach it if you can play it? Like, do you think that there's validity to that, or because like people will go unnamed, but like I think there's a lot of jazz education on the internet that people teach a lot of stuff that they cannot play.
Right.
And is that valid, or
I
don't know.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think there's definitely something to an understanding and comprehension that comes with being able to play what you're talking about and what you're presenting, for sure.
But I think that's why jazz lesson videos is so popular, because you everything that you talk about, you play at a professional level.
Thanks, man. I mean? There were some books that I played growing up with that I look back on now. I'm not going to say what they were, but they suck. Like, man, I went back to them in my mid-20s, and I was like, whoa, I learned from this shit. This shit sucks.
Right. Yeah.
And like, I think that, thank you.
Totally.
I've worked really hard to put out some high quality stuff, and I know you guys have done the same, And I think there's definitely that something that comes with being able to walk the walk. Yeah. That helps you inform and talk the talk.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I bring it up as a hot take is I think that when educators or people that pose as educators, as this stuff, like it devalues the music sometimes, because people that don't know any better see this and then like, oh man, that's the standard I have to go for, is this guy that doesn't know what he's doing, but they don't know that he doesn't know what he's doing. You know what I mean? And then I feel like it just kind of like devalues things as it goes down the ladder.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. A lot of the people who are the best players don't have time to.
But that's the other thing.
But, like, man, I put out so much less than I used to. There was mainly during the pandemic was when I put out like the vast majority of the material that I put out, just because I had the availability for it. But
now you have a team of people that,
which helps us get content out and informative stuff, like what you put out and what Nathan puts out, and that's cool. But yeah, that's a really good point.
That guy, Tatum Greenblatt, I think is his name, from the he posted these videos on Instagram that said, like, hit the caption is always, don't assign it if you can't play it. And then he'll like post an assignment and then he plays it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is really cool. I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there's like a weird line there.
Yeah. Right.
But
true.
Yeah. I think the one part of it is the advantage of, anybody, I can say, hey, play this trumpet etude, right? And I can give a Clark Terry whatever.
Yeah.
I can't play it, but like if I know it's good for them to play, it's like on the surface level, it's like there's nothing wrong with that. But then if the kid doesn't do it quite right, am I now equipped to know what the issue is? Am I equipped to demonstrate it?
From a trumpet perspective, right?
Yeah, from the trumpet perspective. And the answer is no. Sure. So they're not going to, so if you're a saxophone player, like, if somebody says, hey, learn this tune in all 12 keys, like just saying that is like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But like, if I start to do it and I'm not doing it right, are they going to be able to, are they going to know what I'm doing wrong to help me? Or are they going to be able to, if I'm like, hey, I'm having trouble, I would like to actually hear you do this at this tempo or this key. Like, how do you do this fingering? If they can't do it, it's like, it's hollow, empty.
Right.
That's like me saying like, I can teach you how to dunk a basketball.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, like my dad,
But like, I don't,
when my dad was teaching me, my dad's a very humble guy. He doesn't call himself a great jazz musician. He is a very great player. But there was a point where I was kind of searching for a different way of playing, and he was like, "I'm going to give you to another person." He's like, I'm going to reach out, like Alain Burdett.
It's so important to know what you don't know.
And he was like,
so
yeah, because he was like, I don't want to fake it for you. Like you're kind of asking me things that I'm not 100%. And I mean, I thank my dad for that every day, because imagine if he didn't do that and was like not letting me kind of like, if he was like gatekeeping me in a way, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, and I guess he was my dad, so I would have been like, okay, dad, you know what I mean? I don't know any better. And I feel like that's like an equivalent to sometimes what people put on YouTube. If the algorithm loves your video, and then like this guy that doesn't know how to play the whole tone scale gets online and posts a video about the whole tone scale.
Right.
I'm not naming any names. But like, I'm just saying, like, I hate it. It boils my blood.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It just absolutely boils my blood, because I don't know. Because I see how much work Jazz Lesson Video puts into stuff. I see how much work Dave puts into his stuff.
Right.
Like, I mean, I do videos for you guys. It's a lot of work too. Like, and also it's a lot of work to learn this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And I would never do a video for you guys if I didn't 100% know like what I was talking about.
Right.
Or if I couldn't demonstrate it.
Right.
If I had to like fake my way through, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody can just set up their phone and they're now an expert on the
It's
internet.
a blessing and a curse.
Right.
But anyway, I'll get off my high horse.
That's good.
No, passion is a good thing, man.
Yeah.
We all put that passion in the saxophone, baby, you know?
Yeah.
Man, there's so many other topics we could get into.
I know.
Yeah,
but there's, this would be a 6-hour.
I have a
Next time
episode.
on the hang.
Well, I have a dream that we're going to do a live version of this with all of our season 1 guests.
Oh, cool.
So
wow, that'd be
we'll get Kenny
crazy
G,
epic.
we'll get you, all in the same place.
Right,
Jack,
yeah.
probably we could do it at Boston's
and
actually.
then do a session.
Oh my god! Everybody takes
Sick.
a course.
Everybody
on a blues.
solos at the same time.
Yes. Pick a key.
Kenny
any
would
key.
play louder than all of us combined.
Dude, he can project.
He's killing, but
Yeah,
like it's
yeah.
so loud, like in a great way. I love it, but like I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's the same thing with Bodie concerts. They crank me and Chris, and people love it.
Oh man,
Like that's one thing people don't get. Like they always put horns too low in the mix at live concerts.
Yeah, totally.
People love when the horns are loud. You know.
Yeah, pop it up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I agree.
Enough drums, okay? We get it.
Enough
guys.
kick drum. Please turn down the kick drum.
With reverb too, so it covers everything.
Have you seen the thing that Sam Greenfeld did a great thing years ago about like horn players at a sound check?
No.
And the sound man at a sound check, like with saxophonists or horn players or whatever. And it's like, all right, like, can we get the drums? Like, can we get the drums now? And it's like, hey, can you get some kick drum? Like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And then like snare drum, hi-hat, whatever, ride. And then it's like, all right, full kit. And then it like cuts to like I think it's like the Metallica drummer or something taking a solo.
Yeah.
And then it like goes to everybody else and he's like, all right, now, hey, buddy, what is this? Is that a saxophone up there? Like, yeah, can we get a little bit of you? Like, and then like Sam like plays for a second and he's like, all right, that's good, man. All right, great. So we'll see you guys at the show. It's gonna be a great one. Great skit. The Sam
90-minute drum.
Yeah. So man, that's so crucial. Like, if you're gonna be a horn player leading the band, like, man, tell the sound man to crank you up. Sound men hate me. They hate me.
That's a good thing. That's a rite of passage.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Unless it's our own touring sound man on the gig, a lot of times they really don't like how loud I tell them to make the horns, and the soloist, like I'm just like, man, the soloist always needs to be like absolutely above the rest of the band.
Yeah,
that it works. The people love it.
That's awesome.
It's like, get the house.
Yeah. Well, man. Wow. Thank you for hanging with us.
Great hang. Great to be on the hang.
Go check out all his stuff. We can put whatever you want in the description if you want anything. You all know him already. You don't need our help for that. But
Chat LB, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, in the very small world of jazz saxophone.
to the 600,000 of you watching, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate it. We'll do a part 2 sometime soon.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, man.
The only thing, real quick, last thing I gotta say, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but the Empire State Building's lit up for the Knicks colors, and I'm a Sixers fan. The playoff game's going right now, so we need to in post change that to the Sixers colors. So we make that red, white, and blue.
That, dude.
Yeah, this blue and orange crap is not flying with the Philly
I didn't even
guy
notice
here.
That.
Yeah, they always do that because New York. It's New York. Listen, come at me, New York. Let's go.
Dang, that's a hot take.
I feel like
sorry.
once they lit up the colors of another team because they won, like
Yeah, that don't.
something like the
that's
World
not
Series
smart.
or something,
That's
like
not
New Yorkers
smart.
got pissed.
Yeah, I bet they should.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. But anyway, Dave, Dan behind the camera, Chad, thank you all. And remember, the hang is more important than the gig. 3-8.
Love it. 3-8 time.
Yeah, cats.
Love it. Cats. Yeah, cats.